I am so excited to have a conversation with my friend Corrie Brock today on the podcast. Corrie is a distinguished marketing and communications expert with well over 18 years of experience in various sectors of that industry. She's played a pivotal role in enhancing the global presence of major companies that you may recognize the names of. She is a true leader in her space. She graduated from TCU, where she met the love of her life, Marcus, and they now have two beautiful daughters. She also, fun fact, has a legal degree, a master's in legal studies, to be exact, from Washington University School of Law. I did not know that. She's just full of surprises. And I'm just so excited to get to have a conversation with her today around faith in the workplace, as well as how to have healthy pushback in that space. So let's get started. Truth time. When's the last time you raised your hands for a swift kick in the pants? Well, I'm the no-nonsense type friend who's going to tell you when you have food in your teeth. So let's get right to it. This is your infusion of sacred and secular, calling you higher into who God created you to be, how intimately faith applies to every part of your life, and how you can live that faith walk every single day in the marketplace. I've felt the tension of separation of church and state. I've been one of a few women at a table of men for decades, and I've stood my ground. Are you ready to do the same? These tools, resources, and interviews are meant to do just that. I'm Jan Touchberry, and it's time to share her faith at work. This is my friend Corrie, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her today. Corrie, just tell us a little bit about you and who you are and what you do.
That's a question that's always hard, but let's see what I can do here. So, I am a Jesus loving, devoted wife, mother of two tween girls who happens to love research and insights and developing strategies for brands. So, from a work perspective, I lead strategy for an advertising agency. So, as a strategic planner, I analyze all the information and data that we have about our clients, their competitors, and the market they're in. Then I come up with a plan on how we can help them achieve their goals and outperform their competition. It's the perfect blend of creative thinking and analytical reasoning, and I love it so much.
You are a girl after my own heart because my brain works that way. And not many people understand that type of brain. Do you or have you ever in your life, because of your analytical brain, I'm supposing this on you because this is how it is on me, but people can consider, I've had the word critical used. Why are you
Yeah.
so critical all the time? Why do you have to blow up all of our stuff all the time? Is
Mhm.
that a thing for you too?
Absolutely. I have always thought in if this, then that scenarios in my brain. And until I had this particular role, I did not realize that that was not that it wasn't a good thing, but that there was meaning behind that and that you could use that in a structured way. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I went to law school way back in the day was because my brain worked in that manner. And I think that that's great. Those scenarios, being able to think through those scenarios helps you be strategic, right? And you're able to overcome something that might come up from a planning perspective or from a communications perspective because you've already thought through that scenario.
Yes, hallelujah. I'm so That just makes me love you even more.
I am validating who you
We
are.
yes, we just relate on such a unique level now. I feel so seen. So tell us about your career because you just dropped that little hint right there, but not
Mhm.
only are you a marketing advertising professional, but you went to law school, girl. Okay, I didn't know that about you. I also didn't know
Ah,
that you're a certified personal trainer. So you've got breadth this wide. So tell us how your career evolved because how does one go from a marketing degree to a law degree to now a professional exec in advertising?
yeah, very good question. Jesus.
Jesus.
Let's
That's
just
always
drop
the
that
right
there.
answer, by the way.
Always,
Yeah.
always, because it's true, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to work in various industries, starting from the client side, which I have had been in for over 18 years, in nonprofits and healthcare and consumer product goods, even accounting. And so transitioning into this agency side gives me a different perspective for the agency. And it also helps when we're talking with clients because I have been the client and I understand what they're up against, what they're needing, why things matter to them and what matters. So that's been incredible. It's been truly remarkable to see how each step of my journey has been guided by God, right? By Him, and how He has led me to where I am now. There's a lot of yielding to Him and what He was telling me to do. Um, and so you asked about the law school situation. Long story short, I wanted to go to law school straight out of college, didn't have that opportunity just because of life. So in 2015, I had the opportunity to go to WashU Law that had a program for professionals that were non-lawyers where you could get your law degree and do exactly what I wanted to do, which was learn exactly what lawyers do, understand that thinking process, and navigate that world in a different way. And it just gives you a different communication skill set too. So that's where that came from.
That's amazing. So what I'm reading into that is you weren't really going to make a profession change.
Right. No,
Okay.
not to
You're
make a
just
profession change.
learning the things. Okay.
Yes, learning all
Lifelong
of it.
learner. Yay. Lifelong learner. I love that. So because your career has run such a wide swath of things and you have so much breadth of experience,
Mhm.
tell us some lessons learned. Give us the dirt, Corrie. Maybe even some things that you would do different if you could rewind, like what would you tell your younger self?
Oh man, so many things. Um, I think, I was thinking about lessons because I mentor people in my agency and outside of my agency. And I think this is a lesson that has been something that I've just realized where it's to stop striving and seeking for worldly reasons and surrender my career to him, right? Because as a high achiever and a high performer, and just that's how God has wired me. And it hasn't been so that people can give me accolades or to say, congratulations. I'm literally just wired that way. And so you could easily get caught up in the what's next. What can I do? How can I be doing better? Again, not in a way of trying to stomp on others or anything like that, but literally my brain is just wired to go. And that has a lot to do with wanting control. That's that part where, God has humbled me and continues to humble me. And it's like, let go. I have scriptures all over my desk. I have a sticky note that sits on my desk that says, let go. I think a positive lesson that I learned early on was to not be afraid to raise your hand, to learn things or do things that you may not have done before and take on projects that you may or may not be in your wheelhouse, because that's where you learn and that's where you get additional exposure, where you become this not a jack of all trades, but I've done this before. You're able to say that's something that I've had experience in, and you learn along the way. So that was a good one too.
Along that line, I think so many people are afraid to raise their hand because they're gonna hear no,
Hmm.
or people may perceive them as whatever negative emotion they would label themselves with. What do you say to that person who's afraid to raise their hand for XYZ reason? How do you overcome that when your brain is, because not everybody's wired. I mean, I feel like I'm wired like you are, and
Hmm.
not everybody's wired like that.
Hmm.
But if the non-aggressive, I use the word aggressive, non-driving
Yeah.
as probably a better word, non-driving personality really has a desire to do something in their business or in their workplace or in life in general, but they're afraid. What do you say to that person?
I first off is try to understand what you're afraid of. Is it afraid of failing, or is it afraid of what somebody might say? If you can answer that, then check your intentions. In everything that I do, I'm always saying, check your intentions. Why am I wanting to do this? To better myself, to help somebody? If those are all the things that are, you're checking that box and it's that, they're all positive, right? It's all for growth opportunity. Then I say, go for it. If it's for other reasons, oh, I want to do better than this person, or something that is not even nefarious, but just not something that's, I don't know, just gut check yourself to understand why you're wanting to do something.
Yeah.
What do you have to lose is a question that I would ask myself. What do I have to lose in raising my hand to do this project? What would I lose if I decide to go and do something that is scary, right? I'm going to gain experience even if I fail, right? And hopefully, I'm surrounding myself by people who want to see me succeed or want to help me to overcome a shortcoming that I might have in achieving greatness on this project. Um, I think those are the things that you need to consider and think through. And if you can't come up with a reason for why not do it, then just do it and go.
There you go. I love it. There's a quote or something. I'm totally gonna butcher this. I'm sorry, y'all. I'll put the real quote in the show notes. Because this is the Jan's 50 something year old brain's paraphrase version of it, but something like Einstein, or not Einstein, who created the light bulb?
Uh, oh man, you're putting me on the spot.
Edison.
Edison.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Thomas Edison. Edison didn't Edison didn't fail 1,000 times before he created the light bulb. He learned 1,000 ways not to do it. And so it's the way that you frame things, I think, when you have that fear of failure, or there's also fear of success. What are people going to think if I leapfrog over them because I'm driven, or what label am I going to get because I'm more apt to try new things and put myself out there than somebody who's not wired that way.
I think that that is the hardest thing for some people to overcome is what are other people going to think of me? And we're not in control of what other people think, right? So we have to say if this is right for me and my intention isn't to do this so that I can be like, look, I did better than you, then you got to let it go because they're going to think whatever they're going to think regardless. And we can't let those thoughts or preconceived notions hold us back from our own greatness.
Yeah, I truly believe that when I firmly grasped the concept of what you just said, my life changed. When you can make that shift to understand that it's not a, like, you can only control this much of what people think about you and what they say behind your back or in front of your back.
Mhm.
And if you know that God's calling you to something and you're not doing it because you're afraid of what other people are thinking or saying about you, are you sinning? Because you're not fulfilling what God has placed in you and on you to do because you're afraid of man. Man, when you can grasp that, it is powerful and it will shift your posture, it will shift your direction, it will change your life. And so, yeah, that's a word right there. For somebody, that's a word. You talked about the workplace. You've had a lot of experience in the workplace. And I know that one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about is your stance on pushing back in the workplace. And I am, again, presupposing this, but as a female around the table, I don't know if it's
Huh.
in advertising like it is in other industries, but there's not a lot of females around the leadership table. And
Mhm.
my guess would be that there's some pushback that happens because you're a woman. And then there's always pushback because people they don't agree, or they're not thinking the same way or down the same path. And I can imagine, especially in the advertising world, that that is prevalent because people have different ideas for the direction that a client should go, or whatever.
Mhm.
So, but healthy pushback is so important because you can put that wall up and push, especially as a strong personality like most
Mhm.
drivers have, or you can learn how to do it in a healthy way. And I would love for you to give us some lessons, give me some some lessons on that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think it's you talked about like lessons that we've learned in the past, and I've had some pretty humbling experiences in my 20-year tenure. And so as I've tried to hone the skill of providing healthy pushback and teaching others to provide that healthy pushback. And so that those experiences become growth opportunities versus opportunities that make me cry and sad, right? Like ones where you look back on and you're like, wait a minute, either I had the opportunity to do it and I didn't, or I had the opportunity to push back in a healthy way and I chose not violence, but I chose not to push back in a healthy way, and what that yielded me. And so I think it's a hard skill to master or to get under control or hone into, and it's something just like anything that needs to be practiced. And as I said earlier, it's all about your intentions, right? It's checking, why are you pushing back? Like, is it for your own good? Is it because it is the right thing to do? Is it because there's some misunderstandings? Is it the right time to push back? These are all considerations that need to be taken as you determine what to do when it comes to a situation of pushing back or not. And so my hope is that through these lessons that it empowers other women and they have these tools to use their voice at that table that they are supposed to be at. Like, there is a reason why you are at the table. And so sit at the table and do what you are called to do. And if
That's
that
awesome.
means speaking up and pushing back, then do it.
That's awesome. So give us the practical, dive into the practical of how somebody would walk themselves through what to do and what not to do in a certain situation.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll give an example and we can talk through this. So, where this really came from and where I had the opportunity to practice was I was sitting in a meeting with some investors. This was in a previous organization, some investors, my VP, and then the CEO. And they were saying that we needed to do XYZ from a marketing perspective. And I knew for certain that that is not what we needed to do. And I was the only female there, and the only marketing voice that was there. And I intimately understood the problem. And so when they proposed the solution, I took a step back and I said, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Okay, because it's the right thing to do. I have the answers. I'm the expert in this. And this would be not good for the organization. So, I raised my hand. I presented the counter argument and provided facts around why we shouldn't. And it wasn't in a way that was counterproductive. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't condescending. It was very factual. And so I said those things and I sat back and I was confident in what I said, but I was a little nervous, right? Because I was saying this to the leader of this big corporation. And he said, you know what? You're right. And so, in my head, I was like, I know, but really? Right. And so, we ended up doing what I had proposed and not what they had proposed. And he wrote me an email that I have printed out on my desk that said, that was something I was wrong on. And you pushed back in a way that was not only professional, it was what was right for the company. And I appreciate that greatly. And for me, that was validation, you know, that it's okay to do that.
Yeah. Wow. I do think that it would be helpful for you just to kind of run through the fast forward of everything that was taking place in
Or
your brain at that time, because I think there's probably some main points that people can take with them, and like I don't know, it could be Corey's 5-step system to healthy pushback in the workplace. You can coin that sucker and make some money. Let's go. Okay.
let's go. Okay. So a couple of things. First, can I define what healthy pushback is?
Yeah, you can do whatever
Okay.
you want.
I think it's super important that we define what it is.
Yeah.
And my definition, the Corey definition of healthy pushback, is the art of not just presenting, but asserting your ideas confidently and respectfully, while also considering the perspectives of others. It can
Mhm.
be in a professional setting, a social setting, or anything in between.
That's really good. That's really good. So you're considering not just what you think, but what others are thinking at the same time.
Right. So I've put together a way to remind myself and others on how to push back in a healthy way. And so it's an acronym and it's PLACE, PLACE. And you're probably asking, why is it PLACE? It's because you have a place at the table and your contributions are needed for success.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, give it to me. I'm taking notes, girl.
All right, here we go. So the first thing to do is to pause. You're going to take a moment to pause and assess the situation before speaking up, because this allows you to gather your thoughts and approach the situation with clarity. Okay?
Got
So
it.
you've paused, you've done that. Now the L is for logic. You're going to evaluate the situation logically. Consider the facts, the data, and the evidence that support your perspective or your concern. You're going to use rational thinking to back up those arguments. And this is where all that preparation that you can have and should have can kick in. So, logically think through what the next step is, and then you're going to assess. That's the A. Assess the potential impact of speaking up. So, consider the consequences, both positive and negative, that may arise from pushing back. Evaluate those risks and benefits before making a decision. I always say, is the juice worth the squeeze? Because sometimes the benefits outweigh the risks, but only you can determine how to best move forward.
That's powerful.
Okay, C is consideration. You're going to show consideration for others that are involved in this, right? Think about how your actions and words may affect your colleagues, your superiors, and the overall work environment. Now, this can translate to social environments as well. So think about, if you're pushing back in a friend circle, how is this going to impact those relationships? And again, go back to the assessment. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Consider, people's emotions. Is this something where I need to push back in a different place, in a different space, at a different time? Because what we want to always do is strive for respectful and constructive communication in a place and the time that makes the most sense. If there's somebody that you know who gets flustered when they are pushed against, or just they don't like confrontation, even if you're not being confrontational, this might not be the best way to do this for this person. It might be setting a separate meeting to talk to them about it later.
Hmm. I think that that's so good, and I just from those types of experiences that I've had, I think another deciding factor, and this may come in E, I don't know, is that yes, it may be the case that this person would handle a one-on-one or a smaller group setting better, but is a decision being made right this second that cannot be reversed or would be hard to reverse, that I need to speak up even though. And then I'm sure that, use your brain and be respectful. It goes back to the be respectful and how things come out. This was a lesson that was hard learned for this girl right here.
Because you are passionate and you feel a certain way, and it's not that you're trying to hurt somebody, but you have to do those things that we talked about, considering others and making sure that you are not stepping on toes, even though that's not your intention, right? So it's hard, but it's something that we can master. And I really feel like understanding and walking through these steps can help you get there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so E, this is for endure. You have to be persistent in advocating for your beliefs or concerns. Once you're out there, go. Don't shy away from it. If you genuinely believe your perspective is important, don't be discouraged easily. You stay determined and resilient in pursuing a resolution or a change. Now, nowhere in there did I say be rude, start yelling. I did not say that. But persistence looks like, hey, I know we had this conversation about X, Y, and Z. What's the next step on that? Hey, I'm following up with you about our conversation regarding this. You heard that I said X, Y, and Z. What's next? Consistently following up, making sure that even if you don't hear back, that you just endure, continue, be persistent, advocate, be noisy. Somebody once told me that you could be like a noisy poodle. And I'm like, okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. I've been called worse by
And I would
better.
never put that on you, but I understand what they're trying to say.
I understand it too. Um, I've also heard that I'm professionally persistent, and I'll take that as well. Give me the professional part and the persistent part. That's great because there's value that I feel like I am bringing, and there's value not for my sake, but for the sake of the greater good or the organization. And again, once you've checked your intentions and you know that your heart is not about serving yourself and it's about serving the greater good, then you are cleared, in my mind, to continue to endure and persist and be the professionally persistent poodle that you've always wanted to be.
Oh my gosh. I just got this picture in my head of a logo. I'm sorry. It's the way my brain works. Questions and logos. I don't know. Um, so let me just run through these one more time. So P is for
Sure.
pause.
Yep.
L is logic. Use logic. So pause before you speak. Get your thoughts together. Don't just run off at the mouth. This is the Jan version of what Corrie so eloquently just said. So don't run off at the mouth. Pause. Use logic when you're speaking, not just emotions. Go through logic, the logic process, think through, and then assess. You're assessing what you're saying. You're assessing, is this the right place? All the things. You're assessing everything that you're getting ready to step into and the outcome. And is that the same as consideration? I feel like I just botched that.
No, you did it right. It's pretty much, yeah, you're considering the consequences
Okay.
and you're thinking through like what are the risks and benefits? Is the juice
Risks and
worth the
benefits.
squeeze?
Okay, so that's assess and consideration is C, and then E is endure. So just be persistent, keep going, keep going, keep going. If you feel passionate about something, don't drop it at the first pushback.
Right.
Great. I love that. I love that. So I do want to come back and hit a couple of things that my mind just kind of spun off on. So when you're saying considering the consequences, I know that morally and ethically, there's sometimes a line
Hmm.
that is crossed in a way that people they have to step across that line and speak up, even if it has un undesirable consequences. Like there's a guy that I know who his workplace shut down the ability for people on their lunch break to hold public Bible studies like in public spaces
Mm.
on the work property. And he felt so morally and ethically violated and was pushing back and kept getting no, 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 no. And he ended up quitting. He lost his job because he planted a stake in the ground because that was something that was, they were crossing a line. And so I know that's an extreme situation. Most situations are not that. But in some work environments, they could, I mean, what you say could have consequences. Or if you're a business owner, like, a small business owner like me, pushing back for me may mean losing a client.
Hmm.
It may mean for you as an advertising exec that you would lose a client. Can you give us any thoughts that you might have on when it would be worth it to have some of those undesirable consequences in your mind?
I can't tell people what's worth it to them or not.
Yeah.
So I think that's an assessment that you have to have with yourself, a prayer conversation, a prayer that you need to um, be asking the Lord on about, is this, check my heart, Lord.
Yeah.
I had a conversation and in the past before where somebody that I mentor said, am I right in this situation? Like, am I right? And I said, you know what? I cannot tell you if you are right or not, but what I can advise you to do is to say and to pray, Lord, do you see this the way that I see this?
Mm.
And if the answer is no, then guide me and tell me how I should see it. If the answer is yes, you see it the same way, then make a way, give me the next steps. And that's the best way to handle those types of situations because asking someone in the world, they may not be able to give you the right answer. But if I'm saying, Lord, do you see this the way that I see it? He's going to tell you yes or no. And he's the one, he's the advice. His advice is what I would follow.
Yeah, that's so good. So good.
So one time I received some feedback that suggested that my personal beliefs might be influencing my thought processes. So for me, as I'm a very intentional thinker and speaker, I'm racking my brain on when this could have occurred because again, I'm very mindful about all of my thoughts and actions and responses. And I couldn't identify a specific scenario where this could be the case. So this pushback came in, can you provide me with some examples of when this might have occurred or when you're seeing this? And they were not able to give any examples. And so I said, perhaps the perception may be based on who I am perceived to be and what I stand for. And the answer was yes, that might be. And for a minute, I sat back and I was upset. But then I was like, that's God's light shining through me. How could I be mad about that? Shine on, right? So it's interesting where that pushback went, where it gave me a revolution, and it also gut checked the person or the entity that was providing me with that feedback, where it was like, hold on a minute, I'm happy to change something if I need to, but if there's no true examples on what that is, could it be X, Y, and Z? And the answer was yes, it's probably X, Y, and Z. Then we can work with what that is. I'm not changing who I am.
Wow, that's really good. So I think that's a great segue into really how your faith is brought into your workplace. I live in such a, like, I have a weird world that I live in because it's church world. And so for a lot of this stuff, I don't identify. I don't identify with people who can't pray at their job because we're kind of required to pray at our job. And so I really want you to speak to the people who are struggling with how to love Jesus and be authentically who they are as a believer in their workplace, even though they may bump up against hostile people or hostile entities toward who they are as a Christian.
Yeah, that can be tough, but I think that it's part of your faith journey. I can say as I've matured and grown in my faith, it's been interesting to look back on how much my faith influences my work. Whether it's from how I try to consider all versus just one, or how I carry myself. And sometimes people are like, I don't understand it. I don't understand why she is this way or why she acts this way or why she doesn't curse. I don't care if you curse or not, but why she doesn't curse or she doesn't participate in such and such activities in a public space. And that is hopefully us being set apart, right? And I can't explain that any more than saying, God has set us apart and it is okay to be set apart. And having that confidence and knowing that it is okay to be a believer and to have your beliefs and have that light shine no matter where you are, no matter what seat at the table you're in, no matter what industry you're in. I think that that's powerful and that's okay. I think it can also be a source of inspiration and strength. I've had so many faith conversations with people at work throughout my career, not by sitting there and throwing the Bible at them, by just talking about my experiences, though. And that opens the door for them to talk about their faith and the things that they're learning and growing in. And you learn that, there's so many people that want to have these conversations and that just like you are trying to, just like you said, are trying to find that way of being able to show their light. And if they see people that are unashamed to do that, that gives them that power and that strength and that, okay, this person's doing it at this level. But again, it goes all back to checking your heart and the reasons why you're doing it. Are you doing it for God or are you doing it for another reason? If it's not for Him to show how amazing He is and how He's working in your life, then again, I would ask Him, okay, how how do you want to use me here in this space, in this organization? And less of me, more of you. I have that on my home office and in my office at work, where I'm constantly saying, less of me, more of you. And he shows what that is in different places. I know this is about her faith at work, but my husband is a very strong example of having faith at work where we just came back from a scenario where I met everybody all the way up to his president, and every single person talked about how they see God's light and love through him. And that, as a wife, is so humbling and exciting to hear that somebody who is strong in their work is seen for his faith.
So good. Side note, you're less of me and more of you. Did you know I have that tattooed on my wrist?
Oh no, I
Uh-huh.
didn't.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
John 3:30. He must increase, I must decrease. When I was leading worship on a regular basis, I had it tattooed here so that when I play guitar, it's always visible. Yeah, it's been a life verse of mine for as long as I can remember, many, many years. So what I feel like I hear people say is, I don't know how to express my faith in the workplace or through my business because I'm afraid I'm going to offend people, or I'm afraid I'm going to lose clients, or
Mhm.
I'm afraid of something. But what I just heard you say is less about pushing your faith out there and more about being like Jesus in every scenario of your life. And Jesus knew when to be super bold and confront, but he also knew when just to have those characteristics that drew people to him. And I think if we as believers can grow every single day to be more like Jesus and have more of his characteristics, we do exactly like what you were saying about Marcus. When people have experienced Marcus in the workspace and in social settings or whatever, what they're seeing and feeling is him being Christ-like. And my guess is that not only in his situation, but probably in yours as well, that just having the characteristics of Christ have led you guys to be able to have conversations with people that lead to faith and you being
Yes,
able to share Jesus. And I think that's where people get tripped up is you don't have to say Jesus in every sentence. You just have to be Jesus all the time. Does that?
absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense. And I think that knowing that and understanding that, and again, asking him how he can continue to shine through you is not only humbling, but it's exciting to see how he works. You mentioned something about being more like Jesus, and there is I like songs. So there's a song right now that is all about that. And I printed the lyrics and the chorus to it, and it is too stuck in my office in a frame where it's everything I do is done for me to honor you. And I just remember that and recite it every day. So as I go into a hard meeting or a hard conversation, or if I'm tired because I have two twin girls and a life, I have to remember that everything I do is done for me to honor you. And when that could be hard, or when I have to check myself on those healthy pushback conversations or check my attitude, I have to remember that, is this a representation of a child of God that I want to show others who might be curious about what a life with Christ is like? And so, gosh, it's humbling, but it's also it provides you with this level of accountability that centers you on what you're doing every single day at work, driving on the road, in organizations that are outside of work, in your friend circle, in your neighborhood, in your HOA. Everything that I do has to be done to honor him because it's a reflection of who he is.
Oh, okay. I have nothing else to say after that. That was the mic drop moment right there. Corrie, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I have loved every second of this conversation. I just love you. I love everything you stand for. I love that you are not afraid to shine the light of Jesus in your workplace and in really every space that you have the privilege of walking into. And so thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
If you guys would like to connect with Corrie, I will drop her social links and her website in the show notes. I really encourage you to do that. She is on LinkedIn for all you professional people who are on LinkedIn. Go find her there. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Her Faith at Work. If the Lord put someone on your heart that you think needs to hear this message today, will you just smash that share button? And if you haven't already followed the show, I would love for you to do that. Super extra points if you hop over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. That helps the algorithm pick us up and drop us right in the AirPods of people that need to hear what the Lord is saying to them today. I hope you'll come back for the next episode of Her Faith at Work. The podcast comes out every Wednesday. And if you look down in the show notes, I've even got a couple of free downloads for you that I think you will really enjoy. With that, have a great week. See you next time.